Good morning, students. So I will take up one of the important or different kind of topic within your livestock and poultry breeding. Okay, livestock and poultry breeding systems. That is, I think till now we have covered different topics. Starting from myself, I covered some lot of topics and. Lot of material has been distributed to you through WhatsApp and mail. Okay, so by going through the contents of this course, you have understood that this is a little different from the earlier two units, that is unit 1 and unit 2, which comprises of first course comprises of statistics and second one is principles of genetics. This especially it's a relatively application oriented unit. Okay, that is livestock and poultry breeding. So in that again we explained, I think in the initially, just make it very brief for you. In this course you have seen how the genetic principles can be applied to improve the next generation of individuals with respect to their production potential, so that they will be of use for the farmers who are rearing as well as the entrepreneurs who are rearing the livestock and the poultry. Okay, so how to do this, we told you in simple terms. So that is, different topics have been given to you in terms of breeds classification, what kinds of breeds are there within each species: cattle, sheep, goat, buffalo and poultry. Okay, and among that again, what are the selection methods, what are the economic traits. Okay, so by going through these small components, you might have, when we came to the breeding strategy, we changed the focus there. So instead of just worrying about the trait, we focused on how to apply the principles of genetics in order to bring about change. Okay, so applied nature, what can be done to, by utilizing the theoretical genetic, this one, differences and selection methods, how we can bring about change in the next generation of individuals. And I think in one of the class I also told about the importance of breeding, because I think so if you remember the four concepts I told for overall improvement of the livestock, that is breeding, feeding, heeding and weeding. Okay, breed, feed, weed and heed. So breed is nothing but reproduction of selected animals. Okay, heed is nothing but management, feed is with respect to the nutrition, and weed is to cull the poorly producing animals. Okay, if you follow these four principles, there will be tremendous significant improvement in the livestock performance, and that will bring about lot of changes, economic, they will improve the economic status of the farmer indirectly. Okay, so with respect to that, today's topic is breeding for disease resistance. Okay, so earlier actually I think as I think in the classification of economic traits, or in telling you about the economic traits, just to brief, just to refresh your idea of economic traits, in cattle and buffalo, in Indian context, the important economic traits are milk and the draught purpose. Okay, so and third purpose can be meat, especially in case of buffalo in some of the states where there is a increasing demand for buffalo meat. Okay, so these are the important traits. Along with that, there will be some more 3 or 4 or 5 traits in each species. Okay, so just like you can say age at sexual maturity, that is age at first calving. Okay, and then conceptions, number of inseminations required per conception. Okay, and we can also say, so lactation uh, lactation period itself can be taken as a economic trait. Okay, and we have post calving conception rates. Okay, so what is the time required for conception after the calving. So like this, so in each cattle and buffalo we have got these traits. In the same way, if we come to sheep and goat, the important economic traits in the sheep are meat, carpet wool, fine wool. Okay, and then you can also say age at sexual maturity. Okay, age at sexual maturity, and body weight at a particular age, body weight at 1 year age, or body weight at adult stage. Okay, so these will become the economic traits in the sheep and goat. In the same way, if you come to the poultry and swine, there will be poultry we have, so 6 week body weight will be the important economic trait, and annual egg production will be important economic trait, and along with them there will be feed efficiency. And if you come to the extensive this kind of breeding, you can say average number of eggs or chicken pullets raised per hen will also be an important economic trait. So in this way we have got, I think just mentioned few economic traits. If you come to the poultry, it will be litter size, okay, number litter size, and the number of litter size at the time of weaning. Again, litter size at the farrowing and litter size at the weaning will also be a good economic traits, and body weight at adult stage. Okay, so like this we'll have different economic traits. So along with them there is a need for including one more economic trait, especially in the recent context, since already some few 1 or 2 decades there is an importance with respect to the disease resistance also. Okay, so disease resistance is also being thought of as an important economic trait. But unlike other economic traits that we have mentioned just now, so this disease resistance is a complex trait. Disease resistance is a complex trait. Complex trait because it cannot be directly measured. Okay, so other I think for example egg production or milk production can be recorded and records can be kept, but recording of disease resistance is a complex trait because the trait itself is a complex in nature when we say disease resistance. So for example, so let us see what is disease resistance first, and then we'll move on to the other things about the disease resistance. Okay, in the I think objective of this I'll just explain what I will be covering. So I will just tell you what are the factors that influence the disease. Okay, so when you are talking about disease resistance as an economic trait, we need to say understand what is a disease itself and what all are involved in the disease. Okay, what are the types of immunity. Okay, and why important genetic disease resistance is. Again, I have disease resistance, I have just specifically told here importance of genetic disease resistance. Okay, so I have just stressed upon the available, that is inborn. The disease resistance has a character if it is transmitted from parents to offspring. That component I am telling about, that component, that is importance of genetic disease resistance. And then how to measure it. Okay, next topic will be how to measure the disease resistance. And I have given just some examples with respect to salmonellosis as an example. I have taken salmonellosis for disease resistance. Okay, I think I will just move on to what is a disease. I think all of you are aware of the fact that by now I think microbiology course is you are undergoing, and pathology is also being done now. So I think by now you know that diseases are of many types. Okay, infectious, broad classification will be infectious and non-infectious. Okay, infectious and non-infectious. Okay, so when we say in non-infectious, there are a few diseases which are of metabolic type. There will be few diseases of non-infectious type, and in the infectious we have got viral, bacterial, okay, fungal diseases. Okay, and even we can have rickettsial diseases will be there. Okay, so this is the general classification. We will just see how is the, so instead of worrying about the disease resistance at the first, we will just see the factors responsible for disease. Okay, I'll just explain one by one here. So when we say, I have taken the example of chicken here as a species. So chicken as generally any disease is a consequent this one result of many things. One, there will be stress. Okay, I stress, general stress, and the management faultiness. Okay, and because of seasons, these are one of the components which bring about disease. Okay, in the same way, what is the pathogen if in case of infectious diseases? Okay, it will be, so stress management and season can be for non-infectious diseases also. So generally these are the factors which bring about disease. Then pathogen dosage. Okay, what is the pathogen dosage? And immunological status of the animal, here poultry. And epidemiology, that is, so now we understand about epidemics now, I think better in the context of corona, I think, because so how it is available, how it is spread over in a particular geography, that will also become very important. So if it is there only in small number of cases, then it will not be an epidemic. when it is pathogen is surviving outside in the form of epidemics for a longer period of time and larger area, so chance of reinfection and disease are more. Okay, so then we have got, I think, other two are there. I think they are, I will just read out them. And biological status of the animal, okay, and any interaction among the many factors we have mentioned here. Okay, then other things will be genetic background of the species. Chicken will also be an important, or the line itself, if it is susceptible it will get the disease. Okay, genetics means the predisposing factors. For example, now we know that diabetes is inherited disease, and many other this one blood disorders are also inherited. So like that, if there is a predisposition, the chance of getting infection or disease will be more. Then the nutrition status of the flock will also influence. The age of the flock will also influence the occurrence of disease. I think in general we are just studying the disease resistance as a character here. Okay, we are just looking at the disease resistance as a character compared to other characters. We are looking at it in a different way. Okay, so I think these are the factors which influence the occurrence of disease. Now we have mentioned in this actually only one of them as the important, this one. I think this factor genetics is mentioned here. Okay, so genetics is the only factor that we are considering. So we have got, but in a nutshell, when we look at the broader picture of the disease occurrence, it is being influenced by several factors, okay, that we have mentioned in this slide. Okay, so now if you just look at the because most of the time in the disease resistance as a economic character, we will be focusing on the infectious disease because they are more important than the non-infectious diseases in the livestock and poultry. For that reason, we'll give special importance to the infectious diseases. Okay, so infectious diseases, I think in a small section I explained there. So that involves naturally. So it is because of the pathogen. Naturally, pathogen is the most important factor in causing infectious disease. So presence of pathogen in the host environment is an common component, that is underlining factor that should be there in the host environment. Then only it will get that infection. Then, so the pathogen, when it is there in the host environment, then it will get into the host cell barriers. It has to cross the host cell barriers. Okay, it will attack the target cells and start replicating. Okay, because each pathogen has got a specific target cell, so it will not replicate everywhere. So for that reason, so that is the general this one of the way in which a pathogen causes diseases. Okay, so first it should be important factor is they should be present in the host environment, then it should cross the host cell barrier to reach the target cells, replicate and produce the disease. Okay, so disease, I don't have to define disease. Should I repeat what, should I refresh what is disease? Anything, any abnormality, any deviation from the regular well-being or health of the animal, that is if it is not able to perform its routine activity in the form of production or the routine things, feeding and drinking and other things, so then we'll refer it as a disease condition. Okay, any deviation from the regular health status of the animal is referred as disease. Okay, that is being produced by infectious disease. Then once the pathogen makes an entry, what all host does? Okay, what host does? So it has got actually natural this one barriers are all there. Natural barriers are there, then innate barriers are there, acquired immunity is also there. So there are three kinds of barriers with the host in order to protect itself from the pathogen. Okay, I will just take up those in a little detail in the next slides. Okay, here you can just see naturally whenever immune system components, any animal for that matter, and livestock as cattle, sheep, goat, poultry, okay, or even swine, even including human beings, will have these inbuilt three layers. First one is natural immunity. So each animal is endowed with skin and hair, okay, mucous membranes. Okay, so these form the literally the first physical barriers for the entry of any pathogen, virus, bacteria, fungus, yeast, whatever. Okay, fungus, yeast, or mold, whatever, whichever is the pathogen, though they will have to cross this barrier. Okay, so first is this one, then second layer comes in the form of secretions. Okay, so there will be secretions in the form of sweat glands will be there, sebaceous glands will be there, and mucous secretions will be there. So these will also form the physical barriers to wash away or swipe away the pathogens. Okay. Then there will be grooming behavior, especially in the case of mammals in the form of cattle, sheep, goat, and buffaloes. They will have this grooming behavior. So by that way also they will remove plenty of pathogens. Okay. Then we have favorable microorganisms. So these will also be the, I think you might have heard the word that, so each animal, the mammal or even the avian species also will have a set of favorable microorganisms both in the skin, mucous membrane, as well as in the inner this one or inner internal compartments like digestive compartments, or even especially digestive compartments. They will have set of favorable microorganisms. Okay, so they will compete with the pathogen in order to get the nutrition. So in that way, favorable microorganisms already available in the host will also form the natural immunity or a barrier for the pathogen. So then we have naturally nutritional components. So whatever is there in the feed as an antimicrobial activity, nutritional components in the form of some antimicrobials added in the livestock and swine, livestock and poultry feed will also inhibit the pathogens. Okay, so then we have what is called as an innate immunity. Innate immunity is nothing but, so general white blood cells, natural killer cells, toll receptors, complement proteins, and protein like protein like prion particles, we can say PRP, that is prion particles. So these 4 or 5 forms the innate immunity. So natural immunity and innate immunity are, the difference between these two is they are working as the physical barriers, most of them. So except these favorable microorganisms and nutritional components, remaining 3 are working as physical barriers for the pathogen. Then the second level of innate immunity is specifically they will attack the pathogens and antigens, and they will help the host to raise defense, proper defense for the specific pathogen. Okay, so what they do is they will generally attack any pathogen or any antigen, and they will also process the antigen or pathogen so that the host raises specific immunity through the acquired immunity. The last column I have given, that is acquired immunity. Okay, so first one is physical barrier, natural immunity, rather natural physical type of this one, by competition or other they will drive away the pathogen. Second one, it attacks, attacks the any pathogen, and it will present it, and it will identify whether it is self or non-self, and it will help the host specific immunity, that is acquired immunity, in the form of immune cells, antibodies, antigen processing cells, and MHC antigens, so that they recognize a specific antigen, and they will boost, or they will boost the production of specific antibodies against the specific antigen. Okay, so this third layer is a specific pathogen oriented immunity. Okay, so this is acquired over a period of time. Okay, this is in brief about the immunity system that is there. Okay, if you just move on to the next component, same thing I just explained in a little better way with a better picture. So you can just see here all these. Okay, all these, that is especially innate and early induced response. Okay, so innate immunity and early, that is there in the, you can see the time that is given here. Innate immunity, it is 0 to 4 hours it starts. Okay, innate immunity in the form of these white blood cells. Okay, white blood cells and toll receptors, they will recognize the infection. Okay, it is their recognition by performed, I think it is there in the light blue color, that is being picture that is given in all the rows. Okay, there will be recognition of non-specific effectors, and there will be removal of infectious agent. Okay, so it is a physical innate immunity. Part of that, it is an we can say it is a non-specific, this one. Okay, it will attack any pathogen and remove the infectious agent. Then in the next 4 to 96 hours there will be infection. Here actually one specific thing is, difference is in the second level of innate immunity. Okay, so there will be microbial associated molecular patterns. You can just see the light reddish pinkish color of image that shows you the light pinkish, this one, the pink, this one that shows you the specific immunity and the specific antigen patterns of the microbes is recognized. So then there will be inflammation, recruitment and activation of effector cells, and that also leads to removal of infectious agent. You can see here, and the last one is adaptive or acquired immunity. That is little late, that takes more than 96 hours for the proper amount of immunity to be raised by this method. So there actually it is more specific compared to the previous two defense mechanisms. This is more specific and requires some time. Okay, so but there will be specifically more number of, you can just see here in the light green color last patch in the adaptive immunity, there will be more after recognizing the particular antigen. Okay, a transport of antigen to the lymphoid organs, and there will be recognition by naive, that is earlier very, that is all the common bt cells will recognize. And specifically what we mean by in the last section adaptive immunity is there will be elicit of specific antibodies and specific killer cells, okay, for the specific antigen. That is early, that leads to the removal of infectious agent. Okay, that also leads to removal of infectious agent, but only difference is it is having memory. Last one, especially adaptive immune response, is acquired immunity, is also called as adaptive immunity or acquired immunity also. It is more specific and it has got memory. That is, once they recognize the specific antigen, there will be memory for certain amount of time. You can say for 6 months or so. So if there is a repeated one more infection, then there will be immunity will be boosted into a very high level by the memory of the B and T cells. So they will remove the pathogen very easily. Okay. So this takes time, but it is very specific. It is having memory. The previous two, early induced response and innate immunity, are not having any kind of memory. Okay. So we'll just move. This is about the host system. Next, we'll just see in the same this one. So it is, I think, as we told, it is disease resistance is complex because disease itself is a complex phenomena. So that being caused by, you can just see here, we have got, just to mention a few, we have got the pathogens which can be gram negative bacteria, gram positive bacteria, virus. Okay, in the virus again they can be double stranded RNA, single stranded RNA, or they can be even the DNA. This one also, DNA viruses are also there. So you have got parasites, fungus. Okay, plenty of pathogens are there. So you can just see at the pictorial representation of the innate immunity here. Okay, so here we have got the toll-like receptors. I think in the second column we mentioned toll-like receptors, white blood cells. So these TLRs, toll-like receptors, they are nothing but watchmans, you can say. In the, to just to give an example, they are watchmans or security persons. Okay, so if the security person is fit, they will recognize whether he is self or non-self and alert the security mechanism. Okay, so in the same way, these toll-like receptors, they will recognize the foreign antigen, and there will be antigen processing cells also. They will, so it is a complex mechanism. So there are a lot of proteins involved in the immune response. Okay, for that reason, why we are explaining all this is disease resistance itself is a complex trait. So in order to just understand it, we need the study of this immunity. Okay, so we know that now. So again, in that actually these TLR receptors are being influenced by genes only. Toll-like receptors are influenced by the genes. Okay, so indirectly what we want to say is innate immunity is specific. Okay, is dependent on the genotype of the animal here in this context, in this course and this topics context, that is disease breeding for disease resistance. We are telling, so disease resistance being influenced by a lot of traits is a product of genotype. Okay, is a product of genotype. Okay, so here just to throw some more light on the same, this one adaptive or acquired immunity. Okay, here I think now it is two things are clear. One, there are natural barriers. Second one is innate immunity, which is general in nature, and adaptive immunity, which is specific. Here what is being done here is, so to show you immunity is specific, especially acquired immunity, that we explained through the slide. That is if you go back to the slide, earlier one, here we explained. Okay, I think in this. So here in this only. So the adaptive immunity we have mentioned here. Okay, adaptive immunity mentioned here. You can just see the words we have given here. Okay, so adaptive immune response, infection, antigen being presented to lymphoid organs, recognition by B and T cells, and clonal expansion and differentiation of the effector cells. Okay, clonal expansion means the B cells which are specific to for a particular antigens which produce a specific antibody are multiplied in large number. Okay, so it is specific compared to the earlier two, it is a specific immunity. Okay, here we will just take the example. In the here only we'll just give you the adaptive immunity is specific in nature. Okay, for example, for a chicken, if you give killed salmonella, okay, killed salmonella is nothing but a vaccine or an antigen. Okay, so it does not have pathogenicity, only antigen is there. Okay, you give killed salmonella in the first slide, then after 10 days you give live salmonella, bird survives. Okay, so this is keeping everything is normal. Okay, so it's an healthy bird is there, give killed salmonella, after 10 days you give live salmonella, so it will survive the infection because the specific immunity, the memory is there. So we told after 96 hours there will be adaptive immunity will be there active in the animal or the animal or the bird. So once that specific immunity or the memory, the immunity which is having memory is active, naturally the host survives by with the help of specific T and B cells. Okay, now same thing you can just look at the second row there. We have given killed Vibrio cholera is given. Okay, so after 10 days you give live Vibrio cholera, bird survives. Okay, that is because of 96, after 96 hours there is a immune response, specific immune response which is having memory, so it will protect the bird. Okay, so then we just look at the last two rows, a different this one. Okay, in order to show you the acquired immunity is specific only. Okay, you give killed salmonella and then inject the after 10 days you inject the live Vibrio cholera. Okay, change is you have raised the adaptive immunity for killed salmonella, so you are giving a different antigen, or in the live cases animal is being exposed to the other bacteria. Okay, so naturally the animal is not able to sustain the pathogen load, so animal will succumb to death. Okay, so this is we are saying pathogen dosage is there, so cross immunity will not help. Okay, so immunity has to be specific. Okay, immune response, adaptive immunity is specific in nature. In the same way, in the last row we have given killed Vibrio cholera, that is antigen Vibrio cholera is given, then you give the live salmonella, after 10 days you give live salmonella, so naturally there will be again death of the bird because so antibodies raised for Vibrio cholera will not protect against the salmonella infection. In the same way, that is third row, the antibodies raised against salmonella will not protect against the Vibrio cholera. So to make it simple, so it is induction of specific immune response is the title we have given here. So that is only immunity is acquired immunity or adaptive immunity is specific in nature. That is, if you raise antibodies or give antigens of a particular kind, there will be immunity, memory immunity will be there only for that specific antigen. It will not act against other bacterial infections or other pathogens. Okay, so now next we'll just see the genetic importance of the disease resistance as such. Okay, so I think by now being life science student, veterinary students, you understand the fact that diseases in any community, okay, whether it is any species for that matter, will reduce the profitability. Okay, so that is for sure. So now also you are seeing GDP is reduced, economy is under a lot of pressure. Okay, then now also you see that. Okay, so disease, that is anything that causes disease, that is anything that is deviating from the normal routines for a longer time, naturally there will be reduction in the profitability. Okay, so indirectly saying anything that you do to improve the disease resistance status of the animals or the human beings will be profitable. Okay, so then the second one is that when we have the genetic disease resistance is there, that is if the human race or human particular ethnic background has got resistance to the disease, naturally there will be judicious use of antibiotics and the other drugs. Okay, usually an healthier and disease resistant flock will have lesser dependence on the antibiotics or other drugs which are not good for the general health. Okay, then the third point is, so emergence of previously unknown diseases, because just now I told you, the when we adaptive immunity, when through the form of vaccines, several set of vaccines given, so it will give immunity for the specific antigen. It cannot protect you from the other diseases which are not seen or not vaccinated. Okay, for that reason again genetic disease resistance becomes important. Then the newer infectious disease arises. Okay, newer infectious diseases, that is we are seeing now SARS, MERS and COVID. So newer infectious disease, again they will not have the protection, so we cannot get the protection. So in those cases also this especially innate immunity helps. Innate immunity, that is genetic disease resistance, helps. So in one more an important, this one is any diseases whether from wildlife or livestock or any this one, so there will be spread from wildlife to livestock and livestock to wildlife. Okay, so if we have less diseases, naturally this will also be reduced. Okay, so in the next slide I'll just take up the same this one context in a little better this one. So genetic disease resistance will be an important this one, because uh, everybody is now looking at the well-being of the animal in the form of they want their animals reared for food purpose also should be welfare issues. Okay, in general, to make it simple, welfare issues are gaining lot of importance nowadays. Okay, so in order to have the animals raised under, to raise the animals in a very welfare and condition or free condition, stress free condition, you need to have the genetic disease resistance, so that there may not be any this one cruelty in the form of disease as well as antibiotics or other drugs also. For that reason better to have a genetic disease resistant stock than a susceptible stock, in the welfare point of view also, from the welfare point of view also. So consumers want well treated food animals. Okay, that is there, I just explained here. Consumers want the well treated animals. Okay, so they also want drug free products. So in order to provide drug free products, naturally we should have a genetic resistance, disease resistant flock should be there. Okay, and naturally they want their animals to be healthy. Okay, so this also will be taken care when you breed the animals for disease resistance. Okay, so whenever there is one more factor over here, okay, that is failure of conventional this one. Okay, failure of conventional disease control measures. Okay, whenever there is a failure of the normal antibiotic therapy or any other antibiotic therapy, so naturally that will also, when that is the case, then also this disease resistance quality will be an important character. Okay, so in spite of the failure of conventional disease control, so these things will be helpful. These are these point out to the, so for the general welfare of the animal, for the animals to be treated well, to have drug free products. Okay, and to rear them in ideal disease free conditions, and also take care of the failure of conventional disease control measures, we need to have a disease resistant flock. Okay, so we'll just move on to the next this one slide, we'll see what is there. Okay, so now we'll to, so I think all of you might have seen this factor, so proof of genetic disease resistance. Okay, I think this as we told, an important this one component of genetics is variation and heredity. So variation, as it is there for any other character in the form of height difference, weight difference, color difference between the animals, there is also variation in the disease resistance among different individuals. Okay, so this can be exploited. So the variation in the disease resistance can be exploited to produce the future animals which are resistant for diseases. Okay, you select the animals which are disease resistant, breed amongst themselves, produce next generation of individuals, so that the chances of getting disease resistant generation is better than the previous generation. Okay, in the same way there is strain or breed difference also for disease resistance. I think you might have observed some of the diseases like now just now the recent example or the present example itself, coronavirus, it affects only human beings. You see, all cattle, buffalo, sheep, goat are all enjoying, okay, so they are not getting the corona infection. So there is a genetic difference with respect to the receptors also. They target the specific cells of specific species. Okay, pathogens attack only the specific cells of a particular species only. So in the same way, foot and mouth disease, you can see there is a lot of difference between the disease resistance in the breed differences. I think non-descript cattle and local cattle will not get a lot of FMD cases. Okay, so despite in spite of absence of the FMD vaccination. Okay, so usually, so crossbreds will have more susceptibility. So like in the same way, I think buffalo also is a little resistant to FMD. So in the same way, you can also see there are several examples for that. So FMD is there only for the cloven footed animals. Okay, that is, and it is not there in the swine and horse. It is not seen, but swine acts as a reservoir host for the FMD. Like this, there is a lot of difference in the disease resistance for specific among the species, among the strains, or among the breeds. So that indicates there is a genetic variation for disease resistance quality. Okay, so and it is a very good resource. Third point where this one is, so as there is variation, so variation is the raw material for any other characters improvement. In the same way, this disease resistance variability that exists within the individuals of particular breed or the strains or the species is a good point or a good resource to exploit for future use. Okay, and there is naturally there is a lot of genetic diversity in the immunity variation. Same thing. Okay, genetic diversity is there in the immunity variation. Okay, that is the proof. There is a proof for genetic disease resistance. So we can exploit the available disease resistance, okay, in order to bring about change in the next generation. I will just see how to measure it. So as we told any other character, we need to measure the character. How to measure? Okay, whenever there is a disease, natural outbreak is there, first one, it is being actually mirror sided, it has become a reversed tail end, it has become reverse first point. I'll just read out observation of, okay, observation for clinical expression of a disease. Okay, whenever there is a disease, you can just study the field data. You can genetic interpretation of field disease data, conventional genetic approaches. Okay, here what we are trying to tell you is specifically whenever we have a disease like FMD or Ranicate disease in poultry, so naturally there will be a disease outbreak for about 1 or 2 months. There will be due precautions. Sometimes the precautions will not help. So there at that time you can subject the whole this one animals or population for observation. You can see that there are some section of the population that dies and there is some section that remains. Okay, you can just see the data of the animals which are being killed in the process of disease or which are surviving in the process of disease. So you can identify the animals which are surviving and study the genetic pattern, whether the relatives of that animals are surviving or the group of animals belonging to a particular genetic group have succumbed to death. Like this, you can study that and utilize the remaining stock for the disease resistance breeding itself, because that's what happens in the nature. But same thing we can study and take help for the artificial selection also. Okay, so by studying, that is one is this, so observe the natural disease outbreaks and study what kind of animals are dying and what kind of animals are surviving, the breed among the surviving animals by looking at the data, pedigree data. Okay, so that will also give you idea for breeding for disease resistance. You can measure the direct disease resistance is measured in this way. Second one is this is the second one is a riskier approach, but it can be taken up. You can take the breeding stock can be challenged with the specific pathogens. Okay, either attenuated pathogens or the antigens can be exposed to all the breeding flock, and you measure the immune response for that this one, or you can just identify which on animals. For example, in each family you have got 10 animals are there, and for about 100,000 animals if you expose to the pathogen, if in each family you study the after the exposure period with the pathogens, you study how many animals are dying, and in each family the deaths are more. So by analyzing the data you can understand the disease susceptibility among the different families. So the families which are having more survival after exposure to pathogen can be retained for breeding. Okay, so this is one method. So third one, the last one is, so if you think that breeding flock is precious, you can take a collateral relatives of the breeding flock. Okay, relatives of the breeding flock can be taken separately, and you can subject them for the expose them for the pathogen. Okay, by studying the relatives data you can also select the breeding flock for the disease resistance. Okay, either the death of the animals, okay, or by immune response. Okay, I think it is about the recording, how to measure it. So we'll have to pathogen, how many animals are dying, how many animals are surviving, depending on the survival rate after exposure to disease or antigen, you can select the animals for disease resistance. Okay, I think next one I will just tell you, it is just to add you to tell you about the different economic characters that is being selected in broilers and layers. You can see here, I can just give a one is, see, we have got in the broilers we have got feed efficiency, rate of gain, dressing percentage, disease resistance, egg production as the traits. In the same way we have got several traits in the layers also. I just highlighted disease resistance as a character. Okay, so that is measured in neither of the sexes right now, as on now. Okay, as on now disease resistance is not measured as on 2003. Okay, to make corrections, as measured in 2003 disease resistance is not measured. Okay, so but measurement cost is also very high. You can just see the red highlighter I have shown there. It is not measured in either of the sexes. Okay, then a measurement cost is high, heritability is low. Okay, compared to other traits, so it is not measured, measurement cost is high, and heritability is low. That says actually, so we need to adopt the strategy that is applied for lowly heritable traits in order to improve about disease resistance. Whatever is good for low heritability traits, I think when I say low heritability, naturally this, if you remember all the things, I think the crossbreeding will be an best use. Okay, crossbreeding would be a best this one strategy for disease resistance improvement. Okay, so you need to employ the strategies required for improvement of lowly heritable traits in order to improve about the disease resistance. Okay, we will just move on to the next slide. Same thing, how to measure it, challenge with the antigen or vaccine. Okay, same thing I have just elaborated in a different way here. So then you can measure the, so here we are coming directly to the how to measure it. There I have told only with respect to the deaths and survival. Now after exposure to antigen or vaccine, you can measure the humoral or cell mediated immunity response can be measured. So that becomes the record for each animal with respect to disease resistance. Then utilizing other methods like markers can also be utilized for the same character, candidate genes, microsatellite, MHC haplotypes, and QTL. These are the advanced techniques utilized for selection, so as markers. So I think in markers, I think in the biotechnological tools, I think I have told that, right? So I think protein and enzymes marker I told, right? So protein and enzyme markers can be used. Along with that, you can also directly use candidate genes, so they don't need the time lapse. Okay, time lapse is not required. I think you can just add in there, I just told you proteins and enzymes as the markers for measurement of a particular character, I told, right? In the marker assisted selection, we told we can measure the variation attributable to different proteins and enzymes rather than the character directly. So we can also measure the genes responsible for a particular character, so that you can select for in the earlier time. Okay, you can select instead of waiting for the immune response when the animal become adults, okay, or the character to express. You can measure the genetic potential of the animal if you have the candidate genes or gene markers are there in the form of these four we have given here very early in the life, and do the selection earlier. So generation interval reduces. Okay, I think we'll just move on. So these are being employed by, especially by advanced, this one intensive private breeding operators will be employing these techniques. Okay, so we'll just move on to the next slide. So where I think I'll just show you. So this is how it is applied. Okay, so I think in one of the example I told live, whenever this is a disease, okay, in study of disease prevalence, identify the genetic markers. For example, that is being done in the poultry, that is ILRI Genetics, Indian Livestock Research Institute. Okay, so there we have got in Ethiopia they have just done for disease resistant and hybrid chickens. So we have with hopes for the disease resistant chicken and hybrid chickens. What they have done is actually there will be synthetics, that is new genotypes in the form of crossbreds will be distributed to the farmers. Okay, and there will be, they will study the distributed population for the occurrence of disease in natural outbreaks, and they will identify the individual genotypes which are not being susceptible, which did not die. Okay, and retain those genotypes, and they will allow the desirable genotypes to reproduce. So this is what we told in the first one of the slide, where you observe the population for deaths and survival in the case of natural outbreak, and utilize the surviving for the reproduction of next generation of individuals, so that there is higher disease resistance in the next generation. Okay, I think we'll just move on to this. Is, I think it is a little deeper for you. I'll just explain in this slide. There is a set of genes responsible for the immune response. So those are called as major histocompatibility complex genes. Okay, there will be the lot of heterozygosity for that genes. There will be a lot of genes involved in the immune response. Okay, so in the one of the slide I explained there, MHC haplotypes we told, right? So by studying the variation at the genetic level also, which are linked to disease resistance, we can do the selection. Okay, because some of the blood groups or some of the MHC groups are more resistant than the other. Just like blood groups, MHC grouping can also be done, major histocompatibility groups, and those which are resistant can be directly picked up instead of waiting for disease to occur. Okay, this is in brief, that is sufficient for your this title. Okay, here actually how disease resistance evolved. So I think all of you are, by the life science students, you I think understand that it's a simple slide wherein the usually disease resistance, how it operates, develops. There is innate disease resistance. Okay, non-immune traits will be usually selected. Production trait, there will be selection for these traits only most of the time. Okay, but in the harsh environment there will be survival of the disease resistance variety. Those individuals breed amongst themselves, they produce the disease resistant genetic groups. Okay, so that is the way genetic disease resistance is being retained in the populations. So just to give you a highlight of one of the examples, salmonellosis. So as we told, disease resistance is a complex trait and it is immunity specific, we are told already. So salmonellosis has got different kind of immune mechanisms. Okay, there are several serotypes are possible for salmonella itself. Okay, and again among them, among the salmonella, this one enteritis is a human, that is zoonotic disease. For that reason more work has been done in the salmonella enteritis. So there is an systemic and carrier state in the among the animals for this infection. Okay, although animal will not express any kind of disease, there will be salmonella pathogen in the birds. Okay, so for that reason selection needs to be very careful, because so in most of the countries, western countries, they don't accept the eggs containing salmonella. Okay, for that reason, and it is a food poison for that reason. So there is a very careful selection for the salmonella. So for that reason they have identified TLR4 and SLC11. This is a particular candidate genes, means by tracing these genes in the os, you can assure that that animal does not have the salmonella, it will not succumb to the salmonella. Okay, so it is genetic selection, directly gene level selection. You identify these QTLs or the genes, select the animals for breeding. So you don't have to wait for lot of time for the exposure studies. Okay, so this is one way of selecting the animals for disease resistance in the specific diseases. I think in the same way for salmonellosis, different methods have been adopted here. Okay, one is you can just see neutrophil functionality can be tested, immune response. All these are nothing but different, okay, different techniques to measure the salmonella disease resistance. So any one of them or a combination of all can be utilized as an character, as a record for salmonella disease. Okay, so then after that you can go for genome wide study and other things. Advanced genetic techniques can be employed in order to identify the genetic differences, so that we are accurately, ultimately, so study of line selected for other traits to identify interaction with salmonella resistance. So now one thing is you can study. So I think as I told in one of the slide in this presentation only, so there will be selection for many traits. Okay, feed efficiency, egg production, body weight, like this. So you can see how salmonella resistance as a trait incorporated with other traits gives results. Okay, for example, so in addition to egg production and feed efficiency, you are selecting for salmonella resistance also. Okay, so you can see the effect of selection for salmonella resistance on other traits. Okay, that can be studied, and if it is not that deteriorating for other traits, you can include the salmonella resistance as one of the economic traits in the selection strategy itself. Okay, I think, but it is having long term effect. I think this is an QTL map wherein we have shown the regions where actual studies have been done, which chromosome points have the disease resistance genes. Okay, so this is an, I think it is nothing but simply it is a chromosomal map of chicken, okay, containing salmonella resistance genes. Okay, you can just see here, there are plenty of genes involved in salmonella disease resistance. Okay, plenty of genes are involved. So for that reason, you need to identify those small number of major genes which are important. Okay, which are important, up to 60-70% influence is there. Such kind of genes are called as candidate genes. Okay, or QTLs also. Okay, in simple terms, so those groups of loci which influence a particular character in to a larger extent are referred as candidate genes or the quantitative trait loci. You can utilize them for the selection, okay, instead of the character as such. Okay, I think that is sufficient for this one. We'll just move on to the conclusions here to conclude. So what we need to understand is disease resistance is a recent and complex trait, but to understand that disease resistance as a character will be cumulative, and that is it gives results. Okay, and it is also cost effective in the long term. Okay, it improves scientific understanding in the other species also. If you study a disease pattern in a particular species, it will be useful for other species also. Okay, in that way it is a very good long term strategy that should be incorporated in the breeding programs. Okay, then as a this one disease resistance should be approached with the multidisciplinary angle. Okay, you should look at the genetics background, immunology, public health. All these areas should work towards the common approach, common goal of having disease resistance flock. We cannot say genetics is very important, others are not important. Immunology is important, others are not important, like that. Not like that. You need to give importance for all the disciplines so that we'll have a better result in the end. Okay, I think there are a lot of references here, you can just see here, I think at the end. Okay, bye. I think most of you might have understood. I think this is the disease resistant happy chicken. Okay, after breeding for disease resistance, I hope. Okay, I think it's in that gives better understanding. You can just utilize whatever I have told for writing some the detailed mark question. Okay, or some short this one also. I hope this was useful for you. Okay, then bye, see you.